Imagine sitting comfortably in your seat inside a massive passenger airplane, cruising at 35,000 feet above the earth. You look out the window at the dark clouds, listening to the jet engines running with a reassuring steady hum. The passengers around you are fast asleep, while others watch movies on the small screens in front of them. You feel completely safe, knowing that this aircraft is piloted by seasoned professionals and protected by computer systems that are among the most complex and heavily fortified in human history. The autopilot system is meticulously designed, completely air-gapped from the outside world. But what if I told you that this safety is nothing but an optical illusion? What if you discovered that an ordinary person sitting in the row right behind you, carrying no weapon and having no physical access to the cockpit, has managed to connect his personal laptop to a small cable under his seat and has already begun controlling the flight path of your jet? This is not the opening scene of a Hollywood thriller, nor is it merely a theoretical hypothesis presented by software engineers in closed-door conferences. These are the literal details of a true case that shook the global aviation industry to its core, mobilizing intelligence agencies and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. The protagonist of this story is a brilliant and highly controversial cybersecurity expert named Chris Roberts. Chris was not a malicious hacker aiming to crash planes. Rather, he was a scientist who spent years screaming warnings about a fatal vulnerability ignored by aviation giants like Boeing and Airbus. When nobody listened, he decided to prove his point in the most terrifying way possible. He decided to hack the airplane while he was actively flying on board. In this comprehensive and deep documentary from your channel MindBit, we will dive into the backstage of the infamous 2015 United Airlines flight. We will explain to you with precise technical detail how Chris managed to shatter the digital restrictions and infiltrate complex navigation networks through the seemingly trivial entertainment system located under his passenger seat. We will uncover the shocking interrogation files and official FBI affidavits in which Chris admitted to manipulating the thrust management systems and causing the plane to experience a lateral drift while casually drinking his coffee. Most importantly, we will discuss the terrifying philosophical dimension of hyperconnectivity and how our physical world has evolved into a fragile environment that can be brought down by simple lines of code. Fasten your seatbelts tightly. It is time to look at the sky and the screens from a completely different perspective. To truly comprehend the sheer brilliance and immense danger of what Chris Roberts accomplished, we must take a step back and look at how modern aircraft operate internally from a technical standpoint. Decades ago, an airplane was a purely mechanical machine. When the pilot pulled the yoke, actual physical steel cables would move to adjust the wing flaps in the air. Today, however, modern aircraft are essentially flying data centers in the sky. Everything is governed by computers via advanced electronic systems known as avionics. When a pilot moves the control stick, they are actually sending a digital packet over network cables to a central flight computer, which then commands the wing actuators and engine fuel pumps based on complex algorithms. This technology is universally known as fly-by-wire. Inside the aircraft, multiple autonomous software networks coexist to manage internal data traffic. The most critical network is the avionics bus, which orchestrates the engines, navigation, autopilot, and landing systems, operating on classic, heavy communication protocols such as the ARINC 429 standard. This network is engineered to be absolutely air-gapped and isolated from any other infrastructure within the plane to protect it from external breaches. On the completely opposite end sits a secondary, non-critical network called the In-Flight Entertainment System, or IFE. This network manages the personal screens in front of passengers, streaming movies, games, and providing in-flight Wi-Fi, running on standard operating systems like modified Linux or Android. Aviation manufacturers consistently reassured governments and regulators stating it is mathematically impossible to hack an airplane because the trivial entertainment network is separated by a physical firewall from the critical engine and navigation bus. But Chris Roberts held a completely different view. Through his exhaustive study of restricted maintenance manuals and the structural systems architecture of manufacturers like Boeing, Chris discovered that engineers had committed a catastrophic flaw due to their obsession with hyperconnectivity. In order to allow the system to display the live flight map on passenger screens, showing the plane's exact location and outside temperature, they were forced to build a software bridge or a minor gateway that allows the entertainment network to pull live data feed from the primary navigation computer. Chris identified this bridge and knew it was the fatal flaw. If you can successfully infiltrate the movie network, you can exploit this bridge to cross directly into the heart of the avionics network and control the entire aircraft. On April 15, 2015, Chris Roberts boarded a United Airlines flight traveling from Denver to Chicago and eventually to Syracuse. Chris carried absolutely nothing suspicious that could trigger airport security checkpoints. All he had was his personal laptop and a standard Cat5e network cable that he had manually modified at home to match specific industrial pins. Chris sat in his seat waiting until the aircraft stabilized in the air and reached its cruising altitude. He leaned down, and directly beneath his seat was what is known as the SEB or SEAT electronic box, the hardware component responsible for supplying power and data to the passenger screens. Using basic hand tools, he popped open the plastic cover of the box, plugged in his modified Ethernet cable, connected it to his laptop, and within seconds, Chris became an active node inside the airplane's internal network. While the passengers right next to him were watching movies, Chris was typing complex terminal commands to breach the underlying operating system of the IFE. He successfully bypassed the firewalls, and through the digital bridge we discussed earlier, he managed to access the aircraft's CAN bus, the primary data highway of the plane. Feeling the rush of victory mixed with the sheer gravity of the situation, and in a moment of dark sarcasm or a desperate attempt to grab attention, Chris used the in-flight Wi-Fi to open Twitter and post a tweet that changed his life forever. He literally tweeted, "Find myself on a 737-800. Shall we start playing with the ECAS messages? Pass the O2 or deploy flares? Let's see." The ECAS is the hypercritical system responsible for crew alerting and complete engine status management. The tweet did not go unnoticed. The Cybersecurity unit within US intelligence intercepted the post immediately and confirmed it was being transmitted live from a commercial flight. A state of maximum emergency was declared behind the scenes. When the aircraft finally landed at Syracuse Airport, the exit gates did not open as usual. Instead, black FBI SUVs surrounded the tarmac, and federal agents boarded the cabin directly, walking straight to Chris's seat, detaining him, and confiscating his laptop and all his electronic gear. The interrogation of Chris lasted for grueling hours, and it was here that the true shocks, which governments never anticipated, began to surface. Weeks after the incident, investigative journalists successfully obtained the official federal search warrant and the signed affidavit issued by the FBI. What these documents uncovered was terrifying beyond description. Chris Roberts did not merely confess to hacking the April flight, he admitted to federal agents that he had successfully compromised aircraft systems while in mid-air between 15 to 20 times between 2011 and 2014. Chris was utilizing a custom-built simulation and exploitation software he designed himself called Vortex, injecting malicious data packets directly into the airplane's architecture during active flights. However, the ultimate shock that paralyzed aviation engineers was found in paragraph 14 of the FBI affidavit. Chris confessed that during one specific flight, he executed a command directed straight at the thrust management computer, the system governing the lateral power output of the jet engines. Chris forced the aircraft's right engine to suddenly and unauthorizedly increase its thrust, completely overriding the pilot's. The immediate consequence of this command was terrifying. The airplane experienced a sudden lateral movement or a lateral drift in midair, forcing the automated flight control systems to aggressively intervene to stabilize the banking aircraft and prevent a stall. Imagine the sheer scale of this nightmare. A hacker sitting in economy class, messing with his laptop, literally controlling the physical dynamics of a multi-ton giant jet in the sky. The FBI forensically examined Chris's laptop, discovering undeniable evidence that he was actively sniffing data traffic inside the live systems of commercial flights, possessing comprehensive blueprints of how code propagated from the passenger rows to the cockpit. Chris defended himself, stating, "I am not a criminal, I am working for the safety of humanity. I formally briefed airline manufacturers about these exact vulnerabilities back in 2010 in official meetings, and I warned defense agencies, but they used to dismiss me, claiming systems were completely air-gapped. I had no alternative but to prove it practically to safeguard human lives before a malicious hacker or a digital terrorist organization discovered this flaw and started dropping planes from the sky." The moment the FBI affidavits leaked to the media, the global aviation industry suffered an unprecedented earthquake. Aerospace giants like Boeing and Airbus rushed to issue defensive, stringent press statements. Boeing officially declared that in-flight entertainment systems on its aircraft are isolated and no digital breach can alter the flight plans designated by pilots. Yet behind closed doors, reality told a completely different story. In the exact same month of Chris's arrest, April 2015, the U.S. Government Accountability Office, GAO, released a chilling warning report that shocked Congress, officially confirming that modern commercial airliners possess genuine cyber vulnerabilities that could be exploited via Wi-Fi and IFE networks to compromise the cockpit. The immediate repercussions for Chris Roberts did not involve prison time, primarily because cyber laws at the time were fundamentally unequipped to prosecute a hacker who breached a commercial airliner without clear malicious intent. Instead, retaliation manifested differently. United Airlines issued a lifetime ban against him, barring him from ever boarding their aircraft again. When Chris attempted to board a different airline weeks later, he was stopped at the gate and told he was personally grounded. The entire aviation matrix initiated a structural software overhaul. Servers were physically isolated, firewall architectures were hardened, and manufacturers were legally forced to audit their communication code to ensure no bridge could ever link passenger comfort with critical flight security. Here, we arrive at the absolute core and the philosophical dimension we constantly explore on MindBit. The case of Chris Roberts is not merely about a compromised aircraft or a brilliant hacker seeking fame. This case uncovers the fatal flaw of our modern civilization, the obsession with hyperconnectivity, the absolute digital integration of everything. We exist in an era where engineers insist on making everything smart: your refrigerator, your car, a patient's pacemaker, and even a commercial jet in the sky. We have tethered all these critical infrastructures to the internet or localized networks under the illusion of purchasing convenience and comfort. Yet the terrifying truth that Chris practically demonstrated is a golden rule in cybersecurity. If it is smart and it connects, it can be hacked. When we bridge an advanced flight navigation bus with a movie streaming network just so a passenger can track their location on a map, we are sacrificing absolute security for trivial luxury. This obsession has rendered our physical world profoundly fragile. A single line of code, written by an introverted coder sitting in his room or in an economy class seat using a $500 laptop, is capable of paralyzing global aviation, shutting down power grids for entire nations, or collapsing civil infrastructures. We have traded physical steel cables and unhackable mechanical switches for soft lines of code floating in the shadows, leaving our human fate hanging on the strength of a software firewall that could fail at any given second. Drop a like to help this video break through the algorithm and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Do you truly believe commercial flights are safe today? Share this documentary with your family and friends to spread awareness. And always remember to see the screen from a completely different perspective. This was Ahmad from MindBit, and I'll see you in the next drop.